His birth was supposed to bring joy, but it also brought sorrow. His mother, a kind and gentle woman, died from complications shortly after giving birth. The father, heartbroken and confused, was left to care for his newborn son alone. He named the boy Chigozie, which means God blesses. In a small and quiet village, beautified among the hills and thick valley, a baby boy was born on a stormy night to Mr. Nnamdi. His father named him Chigozie. Chigozie's father, Nnamdi, was a hard-working man. He was a farmer and spent most of his days in the fields trying to make a living. But as a single father, things became very difficult. The baby needed constant care and attention, and Nnamdi didn't know much about taking care of a child. He did the best he could, but it wasn't easy. As time passed, Chigozie grew. By the time he was 2 years old, Nnamdi decided that he couldn't manage the farm and raise the boy alone, so he remarried. The new woman he brought into their home was called Neka. At first, Nnamdi thought she was the answer to his prayers. She was beautiful, strong, and seemed kind. He believed she would be a good mother to little Chigozie. But Nneka had other plans. From the moment she entered the house, she disliked the boy. Whenever Nnamdi was around, she would smile and pretend to care for Chigozie. She would cook for him, pat his head, and even sing him lullabies. But as soon as Nnamdi left for work, she wouldn't care so much for the child. She saw Chigozie as nothing more than a burden. She didn't like the fact that he wasn't her own child. She began to find every little excuse to punish him. If Chigozie dropped the spoon, Neka would yell at him and make him pick it up over and over again. If he spilled water, she would send him out to fetch more, even though he was too small to carry a heavy bucket. As time went on, Neka's punishment became more cruel. She would send Chigozie out at night to buy things from the store, knowing very well that the roads were very dangerous for a little boy. He would come back shivering and scared, but she didn't care. Nnamdi never noticed what was going on because he was always at work. Even when he sensed something strange, he would brush it off, believing that Neka had Chigozie's best interest at heart. As Chigozie grew, he suffered in silence. He was afraid to speak up because he didn't want to cause trouble for his father. He loved his father deeply, and the thought of making him upset kept Chigozie quiet. Every day, he endured the harsh treatment, going to bed hungry many nights because Neka refused to give him food. For 2 years, Neka stopped Chigozie from going to school. Instead, she made him hawk local groceries for her. While other children his age were learning how to read and write, Chigozie was wandering the village, trying to sell goods. The other kids would laugh at him, calling him names like the little hawker. Chigozie felt sad, but he was too tired and hungry to argue with them. By the time he was 7, he had become used to the daily punishment from his stepmother Neka. She had become even more wicked, always finding new ways to make his life miserable. When Chigozie made even the smallest mistake, Neka would send him to hawk under the hot sun, sometimes with nothing but a piece of dry bread to eat. His feet were always sore and his body thin from lack of proper food. One fateful evening, Chigozie came back late from the market after hawking all day. His stepmother was furious. "Where have you been?" she screamed. Chigozie was too tired to answer, so he kept quiet. His silence enraged Neka even more. She grabbed a stick and beat him until his small body could barely stand. This was the day something inside Chigozie began to change. The constant punishment, the hunger, and the loneliness were eating him away. He had no friends, no one to care for him or show him love. His father, Nnamdi, had become even more distant, spending all his time at work or resting in the farm. He trusted Neka completely and believed she was raising his son well. One day, while wandering around the village selling Neka's goods, Chigozie met a group of boys who seemed different from the others. These boys were older, rough-looking, and spent days loitering around instead of going to school. They called themselves the Street Kings, and their leader noticed how miserable Chigozie looked. "Why do you look so sad, little boy?" Obinna asked, leaning against a tree with a mischievous grin on his face. Chigozie shrugged, unsure of how to respond. "It's nothing. I just have to sell these goods for my stepmother." Obinna and his gang laughed. "Selling goods? At your age? You should be playing and enjoying life." Obinna said, shaking his head. "Why don't you hang out with us? We can show you how to make money without all this suffering." Chigozie hesitated because he knew his father wouldn't approve, but the idea of escaping his painful reality, even for a short while, was tempting. So, that afternoon, instead of returning home after selling all the groceries, he followed Obinna and his gang. At first, they treated him kindly, sharing stories and teaching him how to make quick money by stealing small items from the market. They told him it was easy, that no one would notice a little boy like him. For Chigozie, it seemed like a way out, to finally have some control over his life. He began stealing small things, fruit from the market stalls, coins from unsuspecting villagers. It was risky, but he felt alive, something he hadn't felt in years. However, as he continued, his new friends began to involve him in more serious crimes. They taught him how to break into people's houses and steal valuable items. Chigozie, desperate to prove himself, went along with their plans. He felt it was okay, that he needed the money to survive, and that no one even cared about him anyway. But somehow, Chigozie knew that this wasn't the kind of life he wanted. He didn't like the guilt that followed after every theft, and the fear of getting caught haunted his dreams at night. He knew that if his father found out, it would break his heart. Still, he didn't see any other way out. His stepmother's cruelty left no room for hope, and his father's blindness to her actions left him feeling abandoned. One day, the gang decided to rob the king's food store. It was supposed to be a simple job, just like the others, but things didn't go as planned. As Chigozie snuck into the store with fear, the king's guards caught him. He was dragged out into the village square, where everyone could see him. The villagers gathered around, whispering and pointing at him. Chigozie's heart sank as he realized what he had done. He had dishonored his family, and now the consequences would be severe. The village square was filled with angry voices as Chigozie stood trembling in front of the king's guards. His heart pounded as he looked around, seeing the disappointed faces of people he knew. The king himself came forward with a stern face. "You dare steal from the king's store?" the king thundered. Chigozie, too afraid to speak, kept his head down. He had never felt so small and helpless in his life. The crowd murmured, and some even called for harsh punishments. The king raised his hand to silence the crowd. "For this crime, I decree that you, Chigozie, are banished from this village. If you ever return, you will be killed." The words hit Chigozie like a heavy blow. Banished? He was being thrown out of the only place he had ever known. His small bag of belongings was tossed at his feet, and without another word, the guards escorted him to the village gates. Chigozie turned one last time to see if his father was there, but Nnamdi was nowhere to be found. His heart ached as he realized how alone he truly was. With tears in his eyes, Chigozie walked away from the village, unsure of what the future held. He had lost everything. Chigozie wandered in the forest for days, hungry and scared. He had no idea where he was heading, but he knew he had to find a way to survive. After days of walking, he stumbled upon a bustling city, Owerri. The noise and the crowd overwhelmed him at first, but he quickly realized this was his first chance for a fresh start. Before we continue our story, hit the subscribe button right now, please, and turn on post notifications so that whenever we make a post, you'll be the first to get notified. Please subscribe before we continue our story. Have you subscribed? Let's continue. As he walked through the busy street, he met a kind man named Mr. Okafor, who owned a small shop. Mr. Okafor noticed the tired look on Chigozie's face and asked him if he needed help. Chigozie hesitated at first and explained that he was looking for work. Moved by the boy's determination, Mr. Okafor offered him a job to sell goods in his shop. Chigozie worked very hard. He didn't steal anymore. The last incident had been a painful lesson. He knew that he needed to change his life if he ever wanted to be better. His honesty and hard work impressed Mr. Okafor, who began to trust him more with each passing day. Soon, Mr. Okafor decided to help Chigozie further by sending him to school. Chigozie would attend school during the day and work in the shop in the evenings. For the first time in his life, Chigozie felt hope growing inside him. He was determined to make something of himself, to rise above the pain of his past. Little did he know that this was just the beginning of his journey to greatness. Chigozie took his studies seriously, with a passion he didn't know he had. Each day, he would go to school, eager to learn. He soaked up every lesson, determined to make up for the lost years when Nneka had forced him to hawk instead of going to school. His classmates were curious about the quiet, hard-working boy, but Chigozie kept to himself, focusing on his goals. Mr. Okafor noticed the boy's dedication and felt proud of him. "You have a bright future ahead of you, Chigozie," he would say, encouraging him to keep working hard. Chigozie's teachers also began to take notice of his progress. He wasn't the smartest in the class, but his determination set him apart. In the evenings, after school, Chigozie continued working in Mr. Okafor's shop. The long hours were tiring, but he didn't mind. He was saving every penny he could, hoping to one day attend university. He had a dream of becoming successful and helping others who had suffered like him. Over time, Chigozie's personality transformed. He was naturally friendly and good-natured, which made people like him. He had a way of telling stories and making people laugh, despite the hardships he had faced. His positive attitude began to attract the attention of people, and they admired him for his resilience. As Chigozie approached the end of secondary school, he knew that his life was changing. He was no longer the scared boy who had been banished from his village. He was now a young man with hope, a future, and a sense of purpose. Chigozie's hard work paid off when Mr. Okafor, impressed by his dedication, decided to sponsor his university education. "You deserve this, Chigozie," Mr. Okafor said one day, handing him the admission letter to the prestigious University of Calabar. Chigozie was overwhelmed with gratitude. This was a chance he had never imagined possible. At the university, life was different. Chigozie found himself surrounded by students from all over the country, each with their own dreams and ambitions. He focused on his studies, determined to make Mr. Okafor proud. Despite the new challenges of the university life, Chigozie maintained his hard-working attitude. He made good friends who admired his drive and humility. One of his close friends, Uche, would often say, "Chigozie, you have something special. You will go far in life." These words encouraged him, reminding him of how far he had come from his difficult childhood. While at the university, Chigozie studied hard, learning everything he could about entrepreneurship, determined to apply this knowledge to build a better life. His diligence didn't go unnoticed. By the time he graduated, Chigozie had earned a first-class degree in business administration. Graduation day was a proud moment for him. As he stood with his certificate in his hand, looking at the future, he realized how much his life had changed. From a boy banished from his village, he had grown into a man with the world at his feet. After graduating from the University of Calabar, Chigozie returned to Owerri. Armed with his degree and the skills he had learned from Mr. Okafor, he decided to start his own business. Using the small savings he had accumulated over the years, Chigozie opened a small trading company that dealt with agricultural produce. At first, business was slow, and Chigozie faced many challenges, but he didn't give up. He remembered the lessons life had taught him: perseverance, hard work, and never giving in to despair. With time, his business began to grow. Word spread about his honesty and dedication, and soon, more people started doing business with him. Chigozie's reputation as a successful businessman began to rise. His business expanded to the other parts of the country. Before long, he became one of the most respected entrepreneurs in the region. He married a beautiful woman named Adora, and they were blessed with 3 lovely children. They moved into a large mansion in the city. It was far from the life of hardship Chigozie had known as a child. Despite his wealth and status, Chigozie never forgot where he came from. He was known for his kindness and generosity, always helping those in need. He set up scholarships for the underprivileged children, funded community projects, and mentored young entrepreneurs. Chigozie's success and goodwill caught the attention of influential people in the state. Many admired his story of rising from nothing to greatness. Eventually, his friends and business associates began encouraging him to run for governor. At first, Chigozie was hesitant, but the desire to help his people pushed him to accept the challenge. At first, Chigozie didn't believe he was cut out for politics. He had built his life around business, and entering the political arena felt foreign to him. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that running for governor could give him the platform to help even more people. He had experienced so much suffering and had also witnessed so many people suffer. He saw politics as an opportunity to make a real difference. After much reflection and discussion with his wife Adaora and close friends like Uche, Chigozie decided to run for the governorship of his home state. He knew it wouldn't be easy and the opposition was fierce, but Chigozie had something his competitors lacked: a deep connection with the people. His life story inspired many, and they saw in him a man who had lived many struggles and emerged victorious. The campaign was tough. Chigozie faced numerous challenges from corrupt politicians trying to bribe him to smear campaigns aimed at discrediting his name. But he held firm. His message to the people was simple: I am one of you. Together, we can create a better future. His honesty, humility, and dedication won the hearts of the people. Crowds gathered at his rallies, chanting his name and showing their support. Election day came and Chigozie was nervous, but when the results were announced, it became clear that the people had chosen him. Chigozie had won the election and he was now the governor-elect of his state. As he stood before a cheering crowd, Chigozie felt emotional. This was the start of a new journey, one where he could truly impact lives on a larger scale. 2 months after his victory, Chigozie decided it was time to visit his village. He hadn't set foot there since the day he was banished as a boy. Now, he was returning not as a troubled child that they had cast out, but as the governor of the entire state. The thought filled him with mixed emotions. He knew he would have to confront the painful memories of his past. Chigozie's arrival in the village caused a stir. The villagers, including the elders and the king, gathered to welcome him. Many of them didn't recognize him at first, but when the word spread out that this was the same boy that had been banished, people were shocked. The king, who had once ordered Chigozie's banishment, approached him with humility. "Governor Chigozie, we never knew you would rise to such greatness," the king said, bowing his head. Chigozie looked around at the faces of the people. He smiled gently and said, "I hold no grudge against anyone here. My journey was tough, but it has made me who I am today. I have returned not to seek revenge, but to show you that every child, no matter where they come from, has the potential to become something great." After addressing the crowd, Chigozie made his way to his father's old house. As he went through the familiar street, memories of his childhood flooded back, especially the painful memories of his stepmother's cruelty. He knew he would see her soon, but he had no idea how she would react. When Chigozie arrived at his family home, he saw his stepmother Nneka as he entered. She was walking in a small garden outside of the house. The moment she saw him, her hands froze and her eyes widened in disbelief. "Chigozie," she whispered, falling to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Is it really you? Are you really the governor?" For a moment, Chigozie stood still, recalling all the pain she had caused him as a child. But as he looked at her, he saw the regret in her face. "Yes, it's me," he replied softly, trying to keep his emotions in check. Nneka crawled towards him, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry for everything I did to you. I was wrong, and I let my bitterness consume me. Please forgive me." Chigozie was compassionate. He knew that forgiveness was part of his journey. "I forgive you," he said gently. "I didn't come here to punish you. I came to show you what is possible for every child, even those who face hardship." He explained how he wanted to help others in the village. "With my position as governor, I want to create opportunity for the children here. No child should suffer like I did." Nneka nodded. "I see how my actions affected you. I will do everything I can to support your vision." As they talked, Chigozie realized that healing had begun. not just for him, but for Nneka as well. The village had a chance to grow and thrive, and he was determined to lead the way. That day, Chigozie learned that true power comes not from a position of authority, but from the ability to forgive and uplift others. He left the village that evening, filled with hope for a brighter future for himself, his family, and his people. Never forget that the best revenge to your enemies is your success. All right. So, what did you learn from this story? Share it in the comment section. And please subscribe to this channel right now and turn on post notification so that whenever a story is posted, you'll be the first to get notified and you'll be the first to watch. Like and share this. Don't forget to drop your lessons in the comment section. Subscribe and see you in our next story. Bye bye.